God be the glory.
Great things he has done.
To God be the glory.
Great things he has done.
Great things he has done.
It's a 5-year dream finally realized for the Mathador family. Getting the keys to their new home along with 17 other families, Gabriel and Deandra were beaming with pride.
Thank you, Minister, and your team for providing such trend-setting and holistic details to the homes for this community and to future community. You have really taken the load off. Becoming homeowners was top priority for my husband and I in 2017 when we got married, and our official journey began in 2018. And I remember our marriage counselor saying to us, what are some of the top 5 marital goals that you had? And we had a long list, and he was like, do you want to revisit your list? And I said, no, I think we can accomplish those. Going back to school, having a baby, achieving a home in 5 years. This year made our 5th year.
The blueprint for this community was mapped out in the government's plan from the beginning. And as the housing minister tells us, it's a plan that will continue to unfold.
I'm excited. Among today's recipients are Bahamians employed in the fields of education, law enforcement, healthcare, and the private sector. Considering the personal sacrifices made healthcare professionals in the fight against the COVID pandemic, I'm delighted to see that we have some nurses also receiving keys to their homes. As Minister of Transport and Housing, I'm grateful for our partnership with local contractors and other developers to make affordable housing a reality for Bahamians.
The government's commitment to providing affordable housing for Bahamians is one that is dear to the Prime Minister's heart.
Together, we are working for the maximum benefit of the Bahamian people. I'm also happy to report that this distribution of keys marks the point where Phase 1 of the Pinecrest development is more than 85% complete. That Bahamians must be afforded the kinds of opportunity for happy, prosperous lives and foster a heightened sense of national esteem.
Keeping you in the know, this is OPM Press Now.
Calming ocean views on one side and a spectacular golf course and island overlook on the next, Goldwyn is drawing visitors and would-be homeowners to a plot of paradise.
We're going to go live for our first paying guests February 1, 2023, so as of today we're 75 days away.
Don Adam is Chief Operating Officer for Goldwyn Resorts and Residences. He guided Prime Minister Philip Davis through the 6-story penthouse, revealing the full view that scores of Bahamians and foreign visitors and residents have invested in.
I'm aware there's just a mere house here, 2 houses that were situated on this property, and to see what the property has been converted to. It's just a wonderful display of what I call Bahamian ingenuity. I like to see the amount of Bahamians that are here working. At one time, there's a lot of doubts as to whether or not this could have happened, and behold, it has happened.
Goldwyn's history in the Bahamas dates back to 1994. Tourism numbers indicate that 70% of clients from the eastern seaboard of the United States and 15% from Canada have been drawn to the futuristic business model.
So we're referred to as a condo hotel. So we're 81 keys on the hotel side, meaning we have 81 residential suites. We have studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and some luxurious 3-bedroom suites. And then on the residential side, we have 79 residential suites for owners to live in full-time to be residents here in the Bahamas. We're looking to ramp up slowly. We want to make sure that we do it right, that we find our stride. We want to create a truly customer-centric experience. So we're going to be a little bit apprehensive to just go guns a-blazing, but we're going to target for an overall average for year 1. We want to target at about 65% occupancy.
As the uphill climb to economic success continues, Prime Minister Davis says Goldwyn's presence is definitely a win.
It's the confidence that the developer has in the Bahamas, and the fact and the confidence that he has that this will work. It will all go well for our economy because I'm advised that they will be hiring at least 200 or plus workers here on the property. They're about to start another phase of this next door, which is another boon for the economy. And for that, just like to thank the investors and the developer for their continuing confidence in this country.
Keeping you in the know, this is OPM Press Now.
Good morning and welcome to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. It is a pleasure to welcome you, those in the gallery and those joining us virtually. Today we have an exciting press briefing, and without further ado, because we have a lot to get to, I'm going to welcome Press Secretary Clint Watson to introduce our guests.
Thank you, Jillian. Good morning to all of you who are tuned in live by television or streaming, and to all of you colleagues here in the room. It's a pleasant day again. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I know we're not American, but we like to celebrate with our neighbors to the north nonetheless. And so happy to have all of you here with us. A couple of things we want to talk about today. We want to, on the spin-off from the heels of a joint parliament session yesterday, we want to talk about the importance of the women's suffrage movement, and Minister Hannah Martin, Glenys Hannah Martin, the most senior female parliamentarian in either chamber, is here, and I think it's important for her to really emphasize the importance of that and the advancement of women in our country that play a pivotal and vital role. And so she's here to talk a bit about that and take any questions you may have regarding that. And then we're going to obviously talk about the conclusion of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, the past few weeks, and the team is back, and we'll talk about some of the takeaways from that particular thing. And then we'll highlight the Road to 50 press conference, which is coming up, and the walkathon for that. And then, of course, our featured food vendor is here to talk about something that's quite nutty. So we'll talk about that. So without further ado, let's get right down to it. I'm going to invite Minister of Education, the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin, to come and talk to us about a very important part of our history and the advances we've made since then. Minister.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Clint for this opportunity to speak about a very pivotal moment in our history. I call it one of the most important and fundamental events in the history of our people, and that was the date on which women were able to vote for the first time in this nation. The process was facilitated by legislation which was introduced in February of 1961, and in November 26, 1962, which is 60 years, come the 26th of this month, which is in 2 days, will mark the 60th anniversary of women voting for the first time. The joint session of Parliament sought to highlight the incredible accomplishments that women made once that door was open for them to participate fully as full citizens in this nation. And each female parliamentarian in the Senate and the House was able to highlight areas ranging from politics to religion, to the maritime and aviation sector, in education, and on, and in business. And it was, to crystallize it in that way was really quite amazing to see how women coming from what I would call an oppressed past were able to so quickly catch up. So the Parliament decided to celebrate, and it was a serious celebration. We also, though, in Parliament yesterday did something which was quite noteworthy, and it was to mount in the Parliament, the chamber itself, which is a first and unprecedented plaque with the image of Dame Janet Bostwick, because she was the first woman to enter that house as an elected parliamentarian. Women ran before that, but she was the first to successfully vie, and she was present in the chamber along with some other very distinguished women, former parliamentarians, the spouses of former prime ministers, and were able to really celebrate the accomplishment of women. We sought to highlight that the progress of the suffrage movement and the great names associated with that, the Georgiana Simonettes, the Eugenia Lockharts, the Mary Ingrams, Mabel Walker, Albertha Isaacs, that these names must be emblazoned in our history, because when we look at the history very accurately, They were dogged, determined, uncompromising. It wasn't like they were gifted with something. And they went to England, they petitioned, they networked globally with women on this issue. And so we have to really raise up these heroines in our history. So I don't know if there are any questions related to that. It's a great celebration. I see that there are a lot of women reporters here, and so I'm sure you can relate.
So we know that the 16 days of activism, like you said, and we're observing women's rights. Zonta and other women's advocacy groups have said that they are continuing to advocate for to make marital rape unlawful in the Sexual Amendments Act. Would you know, or do you have any update on the progress of the Sexual Offences Act, and what's the next step in the process?
No, I wouldn't. That is being marshaled by another ministry, but really this was about the 60th anniversary of the right to vote. But all of these things are interconnected and related, and including the fact that under our Constitution, the women in here, if they marry a non-Bahamian and the child is born outside this jurisdiction, can't pass citizenship on to their children. Your womb, and you can't pass on citizenship. And so all of these issues are connected about how women are viewed, the issue of domestic violence, etc. But on that specific issue, I know there've been town hall, there've been meetings with stakeholders, there's had extensive dialogue, and I know it's an effort that's underway. And so, but I'm not able to comment as to the status at this time. But, sorry.
Yeah, Minister Hannah Martin, women have not only accomplished the right to vote, but we've seen women progress in politics, being in frontline politics, and in many strata of society. What are your views? What do you have to say with the accomplishment of women in this?
Right. Well, in the Parliament yesterday, this was very ably demonstrated by the varying parliamentarians, female parliamentarians that participated in the debate. And they were able to show in administration of justice, in the public service, in education, and in all of the spheres that women have really come of their own in such a short period of time. And despite the major setbacks, we continue to face barriers, and a lot of them are perceptions, they're stereotypes, and there's some legal barriers. And so we have to continue the struggle. But being able to vote, the franchise, is a critical empowerment, because you go to the polls, you elect, you can agitate, you can demand, you're a taxpayer, you are able to participate fully as citizens. And this is why this particular benchmark in our human development is so important. We're half of the population, and before 1961, February, when that law was passed, half of the population could not participate in citizenship in this country, in full citizenship. So that date is very, very important.
I have a question about your education portfolio. Can you maybe provide an update on that learning loss survey? I know it was supposed to start last month.
Yes, I actually contributed last night to the debate on the Mental Health Act, and one of the things I sought to highlight is all the research globally and regionally is showing that many of our children and young people have suffered mental health concerns in the pandemic for a variety of reasons: grief, the lockdowns, lack of socialization, abuse in their homes and elsewhere, recruitment by groups, gangs, you want to call it, out there. And so, this and the learning loss is an added component to this myriad of issues young people have faced in this pandemic. And I saw it last night, and I try to do it every day when I have the opportunity to raise the awareness of our population, of our parents, of all stakeholders, to understand we're not in normal circumstances. School open, yeah, you're going to go to school in your uniform and all that. We're not in a normal environment. There's been a lot of fallout. And it's very important that we are aware and that we seek to redress. On the issue of learning loss, we, as I have previously indicated, we had to go to an RFP to see what is the best option to assist us in helping our young people catch up. We were able to do that, and a company has been selected, and we have identified or appointed or contracted a project officer who is a former distinguished educator, Bahamian, she will marshal the entire process. The next step is that we will train teachers who will assist in rolling out the testing. And we're hoping we can do it simultaneously, not one, that we can test across the board in a short period of time. And once we're able to measure what is happening in each instance, there will be programs designed to help accelerate the learning loss. This is a peculiar type of loss. It's not normal loss. And it's something to do with the big gap, the blackout that happened in the pandemic. The fact that many young people have not been online or were online but were not really online and couldn't function online. And so, but this is happening all over. We're seeing this issue and we're seeking to be in front of it. And so I'm hoping that in another couple of weeks, we'll be able to identify dates certain when the testing will roll out.
So it's likely it's going to roll out next year?
I hope not. But the way things are and the way the pace of things, but I'm not adopting that, but I'm hoping it's not January. I'm hoping we can do it forthwith. But school closes in December, so there's some practical constraints that we are working with, unfortunately.
I know, I think maybe it was a week or two ago, you announced that all of the bus contracts for the Family Islands had been canceled. Can you maybe provide an update on whether any new contracts have been signed?
Right. Now, they expire. Some expire the end of this year naturally, and then others will be terminated in accordance with the agreement, the terms of the agreement on the 3rd of January. So nothing has happened. There's still current contracts, and so we have not superseded that event. But we hope that we will have a construct for busing to move right in after that date.
Good morning. Would you be able to speak to, I guess, how has attendance been so far for the school semester since students came back face-to-face? Is the ministry satisfied with it?
Well, we're analyzing it. In some places, like in parts of Grand Bahama and even in Abaco, we've been told there's been emigration out. And so we have to be clear on whether it's non-attendance or just not being on that island anymore. And they were in the post-pandemic reality, Dorian, there've been shifts and changes. But we're able to identify who is registered and who's not attending. There are those also who are not registered. That's a different component. What we have done is we've brought on, we have about 20 attendance officers who came over from the COVID policing regime, who were trained and who are on the streets, on the ground daily to find, in particular, those who are not on the radar, who are not registered. Also, we are working with the Office of the Prime Minister, which has a delivery unit, which is looking particularly at this issue of attendance, because historically, the Bahamas and maybe other countries, we've had persistent issues of non-attendance, but they've been around 10%, and so or 10, 15%. This delivery unit is working with the Ministry of Education, all stakeholders, all hands on deck, to ensure we get all of our young people in school. So to answer your question, we are concerned when children are not attending school. We have attendance monitors on the ground. We're working with the Office of the Prime Minister to create defined strategies to ensure all of our children are in school, including that stubborn, persistent number we've seen historically, to even go after that. So that work is underway.
Speak to the shortage of teachers. I know a lot of the teachers have been, resigning, whether it's salary or just conditions. Can you speak, update on that, please?
In the Bahamas, I don't think we had that great exodus that we've seen in other Caribbean nations. So that has really not been an issue. The shortages that we're experiencing is in particular areas. It's like when you have shortages in skills, certain skills like engineers, etc. We are seeing shortages in language arts, which is English, mathematics, in the sciences, and something we call the generalists, which goes into primary school and can teach anything. These are the critical areas, and then of course you have like the technical skills. That's always a concern. But the major thing we're facing right now is language arts, English teachers, and we're trying very hard. very hard. I mean, and we know that there are islands now that are still experiencing deficits. We are aware, we are concerned, and we're trying to ensure. Also, we're still hiring teachers through the system, and we're waiting. I've spoken to the Minister of State. She understands the urgency. The minister himself, Mitchell, understands the urgency. And we're working with the Public Service Commission to prioritize teachers, to get them through this system, the bureaucracy, and to get them on the ground and transferred. The other concern we face, and this is a major one, and it's sort of a new phenomenon, many teachers don't want to go to the islands. And this is not what we've seen before. Usually when the government recruits teachers, they understand we're an archipelago. We're not a Nassau, where we have Andros, Exume, Lutheran, Iguana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Acklins, Long Key. Everybody is entitled to education. And we're finding that a lot of our teachers do not want to go, particularly in places like Abaco, where it's post-hurricane and also high cost of accommodations, high cost of living, I'm told. And then the smaller keys, where, you realize that sort of, reduced circumstances in terms of access, et cetera. So this is the thing, and we are trying very hard as we recruit to ensure our teachers understand we didn't hire you necessarily to go to school in New Providence, that your role is to pursue education throughout this nation. That's our role, that's our duty, that's our undertaking. So that is something that we're working on now to shift this paradigm that seems to have set in. That's it? Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I want to thank Ms. Hannah Martin for entertaining us today and really giving us some enlightened information on education that I'm sure can help all of us in our dissemination. Thank you, Minister Hannah Martin. We promised you last week an update on COP27 as far as what was achieved, our negotiation process, and our climate change advisor here in the office of the Prime Minister, one of them, Charles Hamilton, is coming to give us an update. He'll also introduce Shante Russell, one of the members of the youth delegation, who will report to us on COP27. So Charles, thank you.
Thank you very much, Clint, and thank you very much, Bahamas. Happy Thanksgiving. I certainly am thankful to be able to stand before you all today to provide a brief update of some of the key milestones coming out of COP27. Of course, this is not a complete representation of what all has occurred. The delegation is currently preparing a report to present to Cabinet, and I'm certain that after that's been done, that the Prime Minister and the Press Secretary will be able to give a more comprehensive update. But I would say that one of the first key major milestones coming out of COP27 was a fight that was 3 decades or 30 years in the making, and that was the establishment of a loss and damage fund. This was a hard-fought fight, Bahamians, and one that many persons said wouldn't happen. Even members of our team felt a little pessimistic as the ebbs and flow of the talks went into the last few days of the conference. And honestly, seeing the establishment gets me a little emotional, because as a citizen in a country at the front line of the climate crisis, and witnessing how our country and other countries get battered by climate disasters, we know that we need support. We need support for the impacts that climate change are having on us now and not just in the future. And this is how come we fight so hard to be at these meetings and to have our voices heard. The establishment of a loss and damage fund, I have to say, has to be put squarely at the foot of the Alliance of Small Island States, and showed us that 39 island nations, we can punch far above our weight. I recall when our team from the Climate Change and Advisory and the Environmental Advisory Unit went to Bonn, Germany in June to hammer out the next steps going into COP27. We said that this fund had to be on the agenda or we wouldn't show up. Our colleagues in AOSIS agreed. We managed to keep together a united coalition of developing countries, that's between the G77 and China, and who was led by Pakistan at the time, who recently came out of devastating floods. And Bahamians, I think that you would recall that in August of this year, Prime Minister Davis held a meeting of Caribbean heads of government in preparation for COP27. And one of the key priorities that was highlighted was the establishment of this fund at COP27. And if I'm completely honest with you, our Caribbean leaders said that if this fund was not established, we would not be attending other COPs. Why? Because how could we continue to support an event that is supposed to address and implement issues relating to climate solutions for the most vulnerable if our most key concern is not being heard? And with the convergence of COVID-19 conflict and climate, we said that if not now, when? And it had to be now. So we drew the line at Sharm el-Sheikh. So the chair of G77, I think, said most eloquently that this fund is not about accepting charity, but it's as a down payment on investment in our futures and for climate justice. And the chair of the Alliance of Small Island States also said that the international community has restored global faith in this critical process. It's dedicating to ensuring that no one is left behind, that this agreement is a win for our world, and that you're showing that those who are at the front lines who have felt neglected, that we hear you, we see you, and we're giving you the respect that you deserve. So that takes us into our next point, that even though the fund was established in Egypt, it doesn't mean that funds are gonna start flowing immediately, no, right? A transitional committee of about 24 members, 10 from developed countries and 14 from developing countries, is going to be formed, and they will be making recommendations on how to operationalize both the funding arrangements and the loss and damage fund at COP28 next year. The first meeting of this committee is set to happen before the end of March 2023. And our country will continue to follow and advocate to ensure that the work of this committee prioritizes vulnerable island states like the Bahamas, who contribute the least but suffer the most from climate change. Parties also agreed on institutional arrangements around the Santiago Network on loss and damage to help catalyze technical assistance to developing countries that are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. So we got 2 wins out of there. We have the fund, we have this technical assistance component to help us to be able to address issues and prepare us for climate change. And we know that there's some work ahead, but at least a goal is in sight, right? And I think that we need to go ahead and really be proud that us, as small countries, help to push this thing forward. Some other key highlights, I would say, include that there is a greater clarity and solidification of the rules around Article 6 and carbon credits, especially trading within the UN system. This is very hopeful as our country continues to advance the issue around carbon credits, and as one of the key tools in our toolbox for helping to advance community and national development issues. And the UN committee that I sit on that deals with carbon credits was given a lot of work to have to do coming out of COP27, but that's fine, right? The entire global community, we want to ensure that this is a tool that we can use, and we're going to be moving as quickly as possible to ensure that things around methodologies and other tools are available for countries both in the developed and developing world to participate. And so we should start meeting as well, probably before the end of March next year. Another big milestone was the election of a special advisor on climate change and environmental matters, Rochelle Newbold, to the COP Bureau. The Bureau supports the COP, the CMP, and the CMA through the provision of advice and guidance regarding the ongoing work under the convention, so the UNFCCC, the Kyoto Protocol, that's where CMP comes in, and the CMA, which is the Paris Agreement. Really, they come from the 5 different UN regional groups and small island states, and the Bureau is responsible for questions of process management. It assists the COP presidency in the performance of their duties by providing advice and various tasks, and is responsible for examining credentials of parties, reviewing lists of IGOs and NGO accreditation, submitting reports to the conference. And Mrs. Newbold will play an important role in the elections of persons to various bodies within the UNFCCC. So this is a big deal for our country, and it helps to ingrain us even further into the international climate diplomacy space. Our presence was further felt across the various side events that were held across the COP. We had a base of operations out of the CARICOM Pavilion, and the PM asked the world to get real on climate change, and the Bahamas really showed that we were doing some real things in several areas, from the side event with Partana, showing about that climate neutral construction solution, work being done by Carbon Management Limited as an innovative solution for addressing the issues with carbon trading. We had representation of our colleagues from environment, health, and agriculture, showcasing the work being done within our country and also integrating themselves even further into the climate change space. And of course, our young people who really, really hit it out of the park and showed why is it important that we need to continue to invest in the youth of our country. So those are just some of tidbits of what we did across COP27. I would like to invite Ashante Russell to give an update from the youth perspective, and then from there we can look at taking some questions together. Ashante?
Good morning. As a youth representative, being a part of this delegation has broadened my perspective and truly refined the ways in which I plan to continue to serve the Bahamas. So as far as my participation is concerned, I would have been involved in 2 key discussions, the first of which was geared towards the Nationally Determined Contributions Partnership, in which the youth representative spoke very fervently about the ways in which climate change is not just affecting us now, but will continue to affect us in the future unless we draw the line in the sand now and dare not to cross it. This discussion truly showcased just how aware our young people are when it truly comes to the climate change debate and what it may cost our generation if we do nothing, that being everything. I would have also participated in a discussion under the Nature Conservancy in which I was allowed to present the youth's perspectives, concerns, and demands for going forward, that majorly being inclusion on all levels. Apart from these events, we as the younger members of the delegation were allowed to sit in on a lot of capacity building engagements for the purpose of understanding the full picture of what we as the future of this nation would need to consider in order for us to survive. In terms of capacity building, I was assigned to the focal area of ACE. So ACE stands for the Action for Climate Empowerment, and this term was adopted by the United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change. ACE seeks to empower all members of society to engage in climate change through 6 crucial areas, these being climate change education, public awareness, training, public participation, public access to information, and the international cooperation on all of these issues. Essentially, everyone, including and perhaps especially the youngest among us, must understand and participate in the transition to a low-emission, climate-resilient world. Lastly, and most importantly, as Mr. Hamilton would have outlined, the driving force for COP27 was the inclusion of the loss and damage on the agenda. For us as a small island developing state, this was an opportunity we not only had to fight for, but lobby to keep. The United Nations Climate Change Conference closed this week with the breakthrough of the agreement to provide loss and damage funding for vulnerable countries hit hardest by the climate change disasters. For us, this is a necessary step in the right direction, and one that will begin to offer us a chance to rebuild and rebuild better, despite of adversity. All in all, this opportunity was truly a blessing and made my hope for youth involvement in these spaces, both locally and internationally, a reality. I look forward to seeing this initiative blossom into a true partnership between our generations, and with the full and complete hope that our nation's preservation and future development will be sustained. Thank you.
So I guess that at this point, are there any questions?
In getting the ball rolling on the blue carbon credit market?
Yep. Well, as it stands right now, we continue to do our work around the accreditation process for the blue carbon credits. We have a company, I already mentioned, Carbon Management Limited, which is currently leading that work in the technical areas. And I think that it's clear that what we're trying to do is focus on the science and ensuring that we have the right partners involved as our credits come on board. But I think that I would certainly look at seeing if we can get representation around, or get Clint to get representation from our Carbon Management Limited, so that way we can have a better update on where we are now. I know that the IMF has been very excited about the work that Carbon Management Limited has been doing, and made an announcement as well that was shared with the press. And so I think I would like to leave that within the remit of the Carbon Management Limited, and I'm certain that you will be hearing more updates about that very shortly.
For clarity, in the blue carbon credits, we know that mangrove forests are usually considered green because it's forest. So will that also be incorporated in the blue carbon credits, or would it just be things like seagrass and coral reefs?
Currently, we are focused on the seagrass, but again, more of the technical aspects. I definitely think that we need to hear an update from our Carbon Management Limited on seeing what the complete process of that will look like.
Any other questions?
Okay.
I just have one announcement before I take your questions, and this is related to what Minister Hannah Martin would have talked about with the women's suffrage movement in light of celebrating and honoring those women who have paved the way for Bahamian women. This Saturday, a special ball will be held in honor of the first woman to register to vote, Ruby Ann Darling. It's under the patronage of Prime Minister Philip Davis and Mrs. Anne-Marie Davis. It's being organized by the Progressive Liberal Party in conjunction with the women's branch. It'll be taking place at the Bahama Convention Center at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Also, a highlight of that banquet will be the presence of U.S. Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, who will be in town attending the ball, as well as Rich Black from Onyx Magazine, all celebrating Ruby Ann Darling. Those of you who may know her, she's an outstanding woman who has paved the way for the right for women to vote. And so she will be honored this Saturday, and that may be something you'll want to participate in as well. Okay, so let's go to your questions and answers for this morning. Our News, let's start with Jamila Missick from Our News. Hi, Jamila.
Good morning. Can you tell us if a decision has been made to send law enforcement officers to Haiti?
Not yet. What we're first waiting on is a resolution from the United Nations that has to be issued first, and then CARICOM must decide what course of action the region will take, and that will determine the course of action of the Bahamas. So waiting for those two processes to happen before a final determination be made.
You're talking about COP27. Do we have any financials yet in terms of cost?
Not yet. Of course, you won't have that at this time. As you can imagine, it was a multi-sectoral project involving a number of ministries and departments. They all would have sent their representatives based on their travel budgets. So it's not one particular budget cost. Each individual ministry would have obviously accounted for the cost for their ministries. So you'll see that in the line item for budget and travel in the upcoming budget. All right. Thank you, Julia. Let's go to Eyewitness News. Tyler Simonette. Hey, Tyler.
Hello.
Hi.
When we spoke to the president of the Retail Scotia Association, he said that they were waiting on the government to get back to them, and they haven't as yet. Has the government made a decision, or I guess come to some kind of resolution with the coaches as yet?
I have no further update on the matter. As you know, those negotiations have been led by Minister Alcides, who's been traveling, and so we expect an update on it. But we're told that they continue to dialogue and talk and work together, and it's been harmonious, and that's about all we can say right now until there's a final resolution.
Independence celebrations yet?
Not yet, no. They're going to have a press conference, and so they'll include all of that in the press conference. That's it for you? Okay. Then let's turn to who is next? Crystal Darling, Eyewitness of Digital. Hi, Crystal.
Hi, any update on the progress of the Sexual Offences Act? Can you say when there will be another meeting, consultation, forum?
Yeah, we spoke recently to the Minister of Social Services, the Honorable Wilscombe, who says that the next move is to meet again with the Baptist church community. And that's what's on the drawing board for the next thing before they move to the next phase. So they're about to have that meeting. They're scheduling that meeting, but we're told that's what's next on the agenda. Anything else? That's it? Okay, so Shelley Lewis. Hi, Shelley. Global.
Town on Abaco, it was promised that there would be a multidimensional meeting response to the situation. Can you say what is the status of that yet? When can we expect some response?
Sure. The Minister of Works is leading this charge. He is the minister responsible for this. He's also responsible for the Building Control Act, which, remember, my last minute of talk, I spoke about that being a very key aspect. What is the law saying about it to be able to move forward? What has happened since then is an interministerial committee has been recommended. Now, I want to make this interministerial committee clear, because there was a Shantytown committee under the previous administration with ministers. This is not the same committee. This is a new committee that has been recommended. And a part of the committee will include the Minister of Works, obviously, the Minister responsible for immigration, because of that component that's involved, national security, because of that nature as well, Minister of Social Services, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. They will make up this special committee. And of course, what will have to happen will be to start to catalog all of the illegal structures in the Bahamas. All right? Now, there are not just illegal structures in Abaco. There are illegal structures in Exuma, Andros, North Eleuthera. And so what the committee will do once they get this information is identify where these structures are, who are in these structures, how many of these structures exist. And then, of course, the law will be followed regarding the proper servicing of notice to the persons occupying the homes. And following that, either demolition or a determination will be moved for the persons to move, and the structure will be dealt with accordingly, whether it's taking it down or whatever the purpose it'll be other than taking it down. But that's the order of how it will happen once this committee meets, to identify these houses, issue the notices in accordance with the law, and then begin to remove them. That is a process that will happen. And another thing we want to say right now is what has been difficult and what has held up the process is Bahamians have been complicit in supporting these structures being there. Where these structures are located, a lot of them are lands that have been issued to Bahamians for farming. And we're finding out that they're not farming. They're renting the space to persons who fall in this category and are making rent from it. So you can't move somebody who's occupying a space who has permission by the person who legally has rights to that space. And they're saying that, well, I'm paying rent. This is what is happening to these payment people. Now you have to now go to the Bahamians who are occupying and doing this and take other matters into their hands. But that has been the practice. Bahamians have been facilitating what has been the bigger challenge. So while we have people complaining about it, our own people are the ones who are duplicit in the practices. But this is at the forefront of this committee's function. And while there's been no time frame that has been set, it has been said now, right? So that committee will come together and begin that process. So I suspect in another few weeks, there should be another update as to them meeting, identifying how many structures we have and what the process will be. And we will keep you updated in that because we want you to see the systematic process actually work. And I'll just talk about it.
It's all well said, but what is being done in the interim? Because I'm told that houses are still being constructed in these shanty towns. What is being done? And you mentioned that eventually there will be the demolition of some of these houses. What does that say for the injunction that is now in place?
Well, this is what I'm talking about, but the legal ramifications of it. And that's why this committee has been established with all the persons involved to make sure that we're going about it the correct way, to make sure that whatever decision is being made is being done methodically. I understand the impatience of so many people as to we want to see it, but there has to be process. If due process is not followed, we're not able to effectively stop this for future. We only will do what has been happening before, delaying it, and they come right back and it happens again. There has to be something that's concrete, something that's supported by law to ensure that this does not happen. And that's what this committee, ministerial committee, will do. We'll look and investigate how do we ensure this doesn't happen again, how we go about it, how we make sure it's effective and not just temporary. And that's why this committee has been formed to do that.
I frame you're saying.
Not at this point. We wait to hear from them to meet. Okay? Jasper Ward, Nassau Guardian.
Okay, Mr. Watson, can you confirm if the public treasury has been fully reimbursed for the Prime Minister's Bermuda trip?
I've been made aware that the Progressive Party is fully aware and ready to make the reimbursement. They're waiting for the paperwork from Foreign Affairs to be sent to them as to the cost, and that transaction will take place. Unfortunately, I'm not the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But I do know the Prime Minister this week made a call to ensure that it happens. So I suspect that should happen within the next week and a half, 2 weeks.
To commit to getting that information, including how much the Prime Minister would have paid for the trip?
Yeah, he's going to do it himself. Once the transaction has been completed, the Prime Minister is committed to coming back to the payment people either through Parliament and updating them on what transpired. Yes. I know there was also concern about, we want to give you an update on Village Road. I know people are asking about the process on Village Road. And I want to say that finally all utilities, BPL, Water and Sewage, Cable Bahamas, all of those utility companies are finished doing whatever work they need to be done. They're closing up those holes. Paving is expected to begin on the 3rd of December and will last until the 12th of December. And thereafter, the road is expected to be fully completed and opened. There have been dialogue with the residents in that area. They're excited about it, actually. There have been town meetings to keep them abreast. They're actually excited. They believe this will help and enhance the development of that area. They've been very patient, and we thank them for that. But by the 12th of December, the nightmare should be completely over. So we're excited to be able to report that today. Yes.
I just want to add to what you're saying, the fact that the Village Road residents are excited about the development, but the general Bahamian public is not excited about the state of the roads throughout the, particularly New Providence. Minister Sayers had mentioned that there was going to be something done that was prior to the passage of Nicole, and the roads are in a horrible state. What is being done, and when can we expect to see something done to repair the roads in the capital? Taxpayers are complaining, to be on the road you got to pay license fees and insurance and everything, but it's unbearable to drive on the streets.
A program has started, and you'll hear more about it. The Ministry of Works will talk more about it, but they have begun repairs. They have begun repairs to roads, and Bahamians will expect to see and feel that release soon. We all drive on the same roads, so we feel the grief as well when the roads are bad. They've been in that state for a long time. They didn't just get bad last week or last year. They've been in that state for some time. And the administration, Prime Minister Davis, as you know, is a former Minister of Works. He is committed to ensuring that capital works, road repairs, street lights, as you see the Grassley Street Light program has begun. People are getting lights turned on back in their neighborhoods. It is happening. And it is a mandate to ensure that these kinds of things that Bahamian people ought to expect are done, and the work has begun. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Does the Prime Minister or the administration foresee any legislation being put in place to prevent something like this at the Esteban happening again?
We have great legislation in place. We're not void of legislation. A matter of fact, it is why our financial services sector is so well known around the world and well regulated. It's well regulated. We have legislation that's in place. There is no country or jurisdiction that's without what you've seen happening. It happens everywhere. This is not as a result of poor legislation or poor regulation of our sectors. This is not that.
The international media is reporting that there are some millions of persons who would have invested in FTX. Is there any numbers as to how many Bahamians?
We're not going to speak to anything regarding FTX in particular because it's an active investigation. You can expect to hear from the Attorney General in due course on other matters that he can speak to. Okay? Sorry?
Later.
You'll hear in due course. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Okay, so let's move now to our feature for the week, which is the Nutty Bavarian. And of course, the founder is Cian Wilson, and he's here to talk about his product. And of course, you get to sample that product today. So come, sir, and talk to us about the Nutty Bavarian.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Well, my name is Sean Wilson. I'm the proprietor of the Nutty Bavarian Bahamas. We would have started back in 2017. The idea actually came to me. I used to live in Colorado, and I would back and forth between Nassau and Colorado, and during my time there, I would always indulge in the nuts. So when I was moving back about 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to bring the idea to the Bahamas and to the Bahamian people because I knew that we like nuts and different kinds of confectionery treats. So I started off doing my first event, which was Jollification of 2017. That event actually led to me getting a lot of opportunities and networking opportunities with businesses such as Solomon's, Bahamas Air, QVS, Pharmacy. Much like a lot of small businesses, we were affected by Corona. So during that time, I just took that time to sit back and try to rebrand the business, refocus myself, and I decided that I should open up a location in the mall at Marathon. So now we're located in the mall at Marathon between BTC and Alive, and we're opened every day from Monday through Saturday from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We still do a lot of events, actually, and we just did Jollification last week, and that was actually a successful event. And we have a few events coming up Christmas time, like Arawak Christmas at the Key, which will be at Arawak Key every weekend from December to January. So yeah. Any other questions? If anyone wants to know anything about the nuts? We specialize in cinnamon glazed nuts, like I said, pecans, cashews, and almonds. We also offer other types of confectionery treats, like with nuts and stuff. So yeah, and then we have samples on the table, so if anyone's curious and they never had it before, just feel free to try a sample.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of our businesses who are making a difference and feeding all of us, particularly on Thanksgiving Day. That's our press conference. If you have any questions, you know how to reach us here at the Prime Minister's press office. We're here to provide whatever information you may have. Thank you. Good afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving.